We are very happy to have you here with us today. Before we begin, I'll quickly introduce you to our community. Today we have with us Surya Banda. He is currently serving as the VP at Creador Foundation, but he also brings extensive experience in diverse sectors, including consulting, public policy, research, having worked with organizations like Sattva, JPAL, and the Foundation for Democratic Reforms. But we are here because before all of this, once upon a time, he was also a UPSC aspirant. And so we want to unfold that bit of his journey more. Yes, thank you for joining us. And
My pleasure. Thank you.
let's start at the
Yeah.
beginning. So I think your original career plan was different. You did your engineering and even worked for some time in the IT sector, right? What then led you to this decision of taking this exam?
Great. Firstly, I would like to thank you, Gayatri, for taking out time and interviewing me, and thank you to Sargam and the other team members at Shores Beyond UPSC. Wonderful initiative. Kudos to you guys. I feel if something like this would have existed when I was preparing for the UPSC, life would have been much easier. But yeah, thank you for having me. And yeah, to the question you've asked, right? I think the idea of joining civil services actually came into my mind when I was, preparing for my, where should I go after my engineering, right? The thought that should I start working in the IT job or should I pursue my master's? Then I realized that maybe an IT job is not as interesting for me. I mean, I might not be a good fit. And then I started thinking about what else could I do, like how else I can contribute in creating social impact. And that's when I realized maybe pursuing civil services, becoming a civil servant would be a great way for me to be part of the government and implement good government welfare programs and try to create impact. But having being part of the engineering group, obviously also have to meet the parents' expectations. I got selected on campus for an IT job. So I thought let's maybe, get into an IT job. Let's see if I can work as well as prepare at the same time. But within a year, I realized that that's not working out, right? Managing a full-time job and then also preparing doesn't go well. So that's when I decided to quit my job and move and prepare full time.
And so you moved to Delhi to start the preparation process, like
Yes.
really.
So right after quitting my job in 2012, I moved to Old Rajendra Nagar, the hub where all the aspirants land. So like everyone else at that point of time, I ended up taking coaching classes. And actually the years 2011, 2012, during that time, there were a lot of changes happening in the pattern. The preliminary examinations and the main examinations were being conducted. I think that was the first time they've introduced the aptitude
Exactly.
paper two, because I remember back then in the prelims examination till I think the time before I attempted, they also had the optional subject in the prelims. But later on, they have I think removed that paper and they've added the aptitude test, the civil service aptitude test. Yeah, I think so. Prepared for 2 years, gave my prelims, gave my mains, stayed in Delhi, gone through, I'm sure, like all the viewers also would have been going through a lot of anxiety, the competitive environment, not sure whether you'll be able to crack it. Also, the unpredictable nature of the exam keeps you always on your toes. So I've been there. And 2015, I realized, that I'm not getting, I mean, anywhere with this. Like, I didn't get a good rank. So I wasn't sure if I would, in the future, at some point of time, maybe I'll land the service of my dream. Being an IS officer was possible or not. So then I decided maybe I should move on. But when I reflect upon it, when I look back, I do realize that those 2.5 years of my time when I prepared for the examination actually helped me learn a lot about my own self. Till then, I was not sure if I was worth it. I was not sure if I would be able to learn new things, whether I'll be able to pick up new skills. but the preparation actually helped me pick up a lot of skills across various subjects and in general made me a well-aware citizen. I think, yeah, so I never regret taking the 2.5 years off of work. And maybe one regret I have for sure is not cracking the examination, but that's fine. Like, sometimes maybe it's not for you. So you have to make peace with it and move on. Yeah.
Yeah, what you shared about understanding yourself better, I think that's one thing that everyone leaves the process where it's not just learning about the different subjects and what's happening around, but on some level, you also get to just introspect and get to know yourself better through this whole journey, right? That
Absolutely. So I think one major learning for me was earlier I used to believe, or I used to think that I had some limitations that, oh, I could only, let's say, read for 4 hours a day, right? I couldn't read beyond that. But at some time in the peak of my preparation journey, I spent 14 hours reading a day, right? Without moving, I was totally into it. So then I realized that if I really want something, I can achieve it. In the sense, if I want to read a lot more, it is humanly possible, and I myself can also do it. When at the start of my journey, when people used to I used to watch a lot of interviews when people used to say that, oh, you have to spend a lot of time preparing. It's not going to be easy. And I was like, oh my God, would I be able to do it? Right?
yeah,
Because in engineering days, it was mostly preparing for the examinations right before the exam. It was like a day or 2 days sitting and preparing and going and giving the examination. So, and then when you go into that kind of an environment, when you see everyone preparing, you also get anxious and you also get worried whether would I be able to compete with these folks. But once I started preparing, I gave my prelims, I cleared, I was preparing for my mains, then the focus completely shifted to learning the concepts. And at some point of time when you're also preparing for the mains, you also start thinking very logically, analytically, and trying to find solutions that you can write in the mains. And that's when I sort of it sort of expanded my horizons. Right, I could learn a lot more than what I could have done maybe staying in a job. So in a way, it helped me shape my mindset, my thought process, helped me know more about me and what I can achieve, and also what I cannot achieve. I wouldn't say that I can achieve everything in the world, but also in some way taught me lessons on, okay, these are the things, these are my strengths, and maybe these are my weaknesses that I continue to improve on. I should work more on. Yeah.
yeah. So while it does teach you all that, but after spending 2, 3 years doing this, sometimes you're also left with a lot of self-doubt, right? When you're still not able to reach that uh, the service that you want, you also start questioning yourself and your abilities. Was that ever a case when you felt low and when you felt difficult? It was difficult to believe in yourself.
Yeah, so the thing is, for me, it was about making it happen. Like if I would want to get into the services, maybe I should give a few more attempts. But at the same time, I was also realizing that preparation is not easy. It takes a toll on you, and when I look back, maybe it was for the good thing that my parents had these expectations that, oh no, you can't keep preparing forever, right? At some point of time, you have to call it off. It's not meant for you. Maybe, just realize and move on. Although then I didn't like it, but now, thanks to my parents who have told me that, because I think at that point of time, it was good that I moved on because the kind of energy or the kind of focus you might have in the initial years would die down. At least it was dying down for me. I'm not able to spend so much time preparing. So I reached my peak and I saw that kind of level of concentration and focus
Mhm.
falling.
Yeah,
So yes, there was self-doubt, there was uncertainty towards what I should do next, what's the plan B.
yeah,
And that point of time, as I was mentioning, there was also not much awareness about what else I could do. I was pretty ignorant about the social impact space. There was not much on the internet. So it was typically, go back to what I was doing, like maybe get back into an IT job or go and pursue a master's, maybe MS in the US or do an MBA, and then get into the corporate world, right? Like your regular stream. So yeah, in 2015, I was at a crossroads, whether I should pursue higher education and then get back into a corporate job, or should I figure out something where I continue to pursue my passion, figure out ways for me to work on creating social impact. And although against the liking of my parents, I chose the route of pursuing and continuing, pathways to create social impact. That's when I came across Foundation for Democratic Reforms, right? It's a public policy think tank based out of Hyderabad, founded by a former IS officer, Dr. Prakash Narayan. He, in fact, is a bureaucrat turned politician. He floated his own political party called Lok Satta Party. Amazing leader, intellect, and I'm glad that I was mentored by him for a couple of years, where I was working with on researching and doing a lot of policy analysis and coming up with reforms. So we used to do a lot of advocacy, policy advocacy under his guidance. So I started my journey as a research associate at this public policy think tank, where I worked on education, healthcare, police reforms, political reforms, various subjects. One great confidence booster during that time was all the knowledge I gained through the civil service preparation. I could apply that in knowledge, right? I could apply that in real time where I was trying to understand, for example, we were trying to create a national healthcare model, which was, focusing more on the public healthcare systems, right? So I got a chance to read about the NHS, the National Health System, healthcare system in UK. We read models of Germany, Cuba, many other countries, and we were trying to understand how we can create our own model based on the kind of frameworks or the systems we have in India. So that was made possible because I already had an understanding of the government policies and the systems in India through my preparation for the civil service examination.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, that was just an example where I could really understand, how the preparation for civil services can actually help me in thinking about what reforms are required, or in general, trying to advocate for changes within the policies as well.
right.
So after working there for a year and a half, I realized one thing was, for a policymaker, let's say if I was a policymaker, I'm being, told different things by different people. I mean, in the right intention. Obviously, there cannot be one solution to a problem, right? There could be many solutions to a problem. But for me as a policymaker, just putting myself in the shoes of a policymaker, if I get 10 solutions, I'm not sure which solution to take, right? There should be a basis for me to decide. And that's when I realized that you would need evidence for a policymaker to decide that, okay, the evidence, empirically or data driven approach, you have been able to prove that, okay, this is what is working and this is what is not working, will help policymakers to make a better decision, right? And that's when I came across this organization called Poverty Action Lab. It's a research organization based out of MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology in the US. It was founded by Professor Abhijit Banerjee and Professor Esther Duflo, who are also the Nobel Economics Prize winners in 2019.
Yeah,
So they do a fantastic job in the generation of evidence. So they have pioneered this approach called randomized control trials. They conduct randomized evaluations to generate evidence on what kind of social impact programs or what kind of government welfare programs work and what don't, right? To put it in short. I'm oversimplifying, but yeah, just for everyone's understanding, trying to simplify things.
yeah,
So I then took interest in working with JPAL, and then I applied, got into their policy team, spent almost 3 years working on a program called Targeting the Ultra Poor. So the program was meant for women. It's a 2-year program. In short, it was called the graduation approach because the idea was to help women set up their own businesses, the poor women set up their own businesses and run it for 2 years, after which they were declared graduated from poverty on certain indicators, right? Like if they're able to run their business very well, their incomes would have gone up 3x, 4x, and they're able to sustain,
Right.
then they could run on their own, right? They wouldn't need a lot of support. So that particular program was evaluated across many countries, and it has proven impact. So my role was to take that evidence to policymakers. So I worked with the governments of Rajasthan, Bihar, and Jharkhand and Odisha, where my role was to take it to the rural development department and pitch the idea. I do a lot of advocacy, and thankfully, we were successful as a team to translate the advocacy into actually conducting pilots. And we also were able to scale up in Bihar through a program called Satat Jivikoparjan Yojana. So yeah, it was a great experience. I've spent 3 years there, and then after things have sort of stabilized, and my role was more like working with these different stakeholders within the government across, the panchayat to the block level, to the district level, and to the state level. It was a lot of learning, but having worked with governments over the past, 4 years, 5 years across public policy think tank and the JPAL organization, I wanted to try out something new, right? So I was keen to explore the CSR ecosystem, and that's when I started looking out for opportunities in consulting firms because by then there were also many consulting firms who started doing amazing work with CSRs, with nonprofits and the foundations. So I was very curious to try out that, and that's how I landed up at Sattva, where I was managing their Western region team of monitoring and evaluation. So we were conducting impact evaluations for CSRs and advising them on how they could improve their programs or what kind of programs they should invest in. So I've spent 2 years there. Um, and then, I was actually looking forward to creating something of my own from the scratch. Maybe start my own enterprise or start my own nonprofit. But at that time, this opportunity, my current organization was looking for someone to start creating a program from scratch, right? So I got to know about this opportunity. I applied for the role and thankfully made it. So currently, I work as a vice president for the foundation where we are building a financial education product, so it's called Multiply. So the Tech for Good product is meant to help women from low income households get access to financial information very easily. Right. Today, almost 50% of the women in India do not feel financially independent, right? They mostly take help from or advice from their husbands or any male head of the households, and have traditionally also not been of the mindset that it's anything related to finances, something that is they have to do it, right? So that makes them very vulnerable because at the end of the day, financial literacy is one of the basic and core skills that everyone should have as an adult. So we have tried to create this tech for good product because we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. A lot of nonprofits are already working on the ground. They're doing wonderful job with educating all of the women. But one major gap was with adults, especially women. You need to provide them information when they need it. And that can only be possible through leveraging technology. And hence, we've gone ahead and created an app. We've also created a WhatsApp chatbot, and we've gone live very recently, and we're hoping to create impact to that. Yeah, that's in short about my complete journey so far.
And what an exciting journey. You got to work across various sectors, right? You worked in policy, then if you're working in financial literacy, there's gender, there's so you've been able to cover so many different things, even though you are outside the government. Because as you said initially, when you decided that you want to work in something where you can create social impact, the idea was that maybe the path is by being in the services. But now, when you just explain your journey to us, there's so much opportunity out there, right, to just still make a difference. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I
Um,
think I would
yes.
say, yeah, just a point I would like to add is from over the past decade, the social impact ecosystem as an ecosystem has grown by leaps and bounds. The kinds of opportunities that are existing now, uh, maybe I'm not sure if the number of opportunities have grown or in general the awareness about the opportunities have grown a lot. Feel both happen. The number of opportunities also have grown up a lot. The space in general has evolved, and also there's a lot of information out there. And guys like you, your organization and the initiative, they are sensitizing. They are trying to put out all of this information. I guess it's also making it very easy to attract good talent from the corporate world and people who have UPSC aspirants as well. Yeah,
Yeah, and we really hope that like more people understand the space better, and there's more interesting talent that's exploring the space. So, for somebody who is looking to build a career in this sector, right? Two questions. First, what would you say this would be an ideal sector for what kind of career aspirations? Because there is pros and cons to everything, right? So, what do you think? What kind of career aspiration would suit um, someone who's trying to get into the sector?
yeah. So I would start with the basic assumption that people are choosing this sector, uh, having thought through it well, that they want to create an impact, right? If you're not sure, if you think maybe you would want to focus a lot more on, let's say, creating tech products or maybe working in the corporate world, then they might not obviously enjoy the social impact space. In the past, also, like a few of my own friends who prepared with me, they tried the social impact space for some time, didn't really like it, didn't really enjoy it. So they ended up going back to the corporate world, which is fine. I think sometimes you have to try it out and then you will realize. But all I can suggest is being very clear of what you would want to achieve by being in the social impact space is very important. The reason being, creating impact is not a short-term game, right? It takes a lot of time. Over the past decade, starting from 2013, 2014, when I started exploring the different kind of opportunities to now, I switched many jobs. I continued exploring different areas because of the simple thing that at the core of my, my vision for my own self was how can I create better impact,
Mm.
right? I continued exploring. I tried to find more and more avenues, and I will continue to do that. So as long as that is something that you want to chase, and you're trying to learn, I think you will be fine. But if you're not sure about the end goal, if you're not sure about what you would want to achieve for yourself, after a point you will completely lose track and you will be demoralized. You will be disheartened that, oh, social impact is not the space I want to be in, and then you would want to get into the corporate world. So there is that risk with respect to choosing social impact and then leaving. So having discussed that, I feel someone who wants to start building a career in the social impact space, I would suggest think about these three things. The first layer is choosing a sector of their interest. There are many sectors now. There is education, healthcare, agriculture, sustainability, livelihoods, financial inclusion, so on, right? There's so many sectors. And, you can try out the different sectors, you can read a bit more about it, and basically, come to a conclusion maybe about which are the sectors. Maybe not one, could be a couple of sectors that you might be interested to work in.
Mm.
Having chosen that, I think the second layer would be choosing the type of organizations you would want to work, because each type of organization has a very different objective, a very different vision and mission, right? You have think tanks, you have consulting firms, you have research organizations, you have non-profit organizations who are implementing things on the ground, you have foundations who are grant making, you have social enterprises, you have INGOs, international NGOs who do different things. So you have wide variety of organizations who might be focusing on a particular sector, but they might be contributing in a very different way. So I would encourage people to know a lot more about all of these organizations. Consulting firms obviously would be focusing on more than one sector.
Mm.
So generally, people would prefer to start their journey in a consulting firm, then figure out,
Yeah.
maybe explore and understand which sector they would want to go with. So that could be a starting point as well. The third layer is the kind of role you would want to play. So after understanding the overall ecosystem and the kind of organizations out there, there are also a wide variety of roles. And for identifying which role would be a good fit for you, you'd also have to think about your skills, right? So, for someone to get hired, at least I, as a recruiter, I look at three things. One, whether you have the skill. Two, whether you have the experience. And three is whether you have a learning attitude, right? So, someone who's just finished their UPSC might not have the experience, but they could invest time in gaining a skill, right? And they could show to the recruiter that they have the attitude of learning that can help them in gaining jobs, right? So, uh, those are the three things that you'll have to keep in mind. And I feel once those things are done, yeah, I think the gap years also would not be a big problem.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing those tips. And do you think that after the preparation, they should go for higher studies, fellowships, or just right as like directly starting to gain experience would be more useful, especially if they're looking at this sector?
I would encourage people to maybe work for some time. This is again my personal opinion. I haven't done my master's yet. I've only done my engineering, and only based on the engineering graduation degree, I've been able to grow in the sector, and I'm able to, be where I am. And I'm not saying I've achieved everything, but it is possible to grow by learning skills and gaining experience. You don't need a degree. Yeah. So I would suggest, if someone is willing to maybe try out gaining some experience, it's worth taking up a job, spending some time trying to understand how the sector works, how an organization is trying to solve a particular problem. It generally helps you take a better decision of uh, which path to take, right? So for someone who's already spent time in preparing for the civil services, they've already done a lot of reading. I think they already have a lot of knowledge, may also have a lot of skills as well. If not, maybe they can gain skills quickly, right? And before investing in a master's or any other future post-graduation degrees, I think it's important for them to be a bit more clear on which path they would want to take, and then they can specialize in that particular area.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
my suggestion.
Especially because they've been away from the market for so long, right? So just getting an understanding of the realities would also help them take better decisions. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, see, what happens is when you're continuously preparing, maybe say someone gives 2 years, 3 years, the frame of mind you are in is you're continuously reading, absorbing a lot of information, and all your conversations are about, let's say, international relations, a lot of stuff maybe other people who are not preparing would be interested in, right? But we keep talking about it because we know about it and that's our world. So when you suddenly switch into a workplace, the conversations are very different. And people used to feel that, oh, this guy feels he's too smart and he's talking about all of this, which are irrelevant, right? Do not make sense to the work. So I think, yeah, switching from a preparationary mode to a professional or a work environment mode takes some time. So yeah, I would personally highly encourage people to get into a job. It'll help boost your confidence. It'll also help you apply the knowledge you have gained because you can continue to gain more knowledge, but what's the point if you're not able to apply, right? And it also, after a point, I feel it makes you averse of coming out of that shell because
Yes.
preparing for the civil examinations, you are in a shell, like you're putting yourself in between the four walls and you're continuously preparing. But yeah, I think a job or maybe an internship or a fellowship, any opportunity where you can apply the knowledge helps you understand how you can create that change. And if you like continue doing it, maybe you should pursue it. If you feel maybe this is not for me, then yeah, then you can choose. Maybe you would want to switch sectors, or if you want to
Yeah.
maybe try out something else, and accordingly then choose a master's according to that.
All right, thank you for sharing that. Just another thing that you were also mentioning when we had a quick little chat before this, what also often happens is that once we leave this preparation and get on a specific career path, be it in the service or outside of it, there is stagnation in our learning, right? We stop learning, we stop developing new skills. So, what would you want to say about that?
Yeah, so I think that cannot stop. I know it happened with me as well for some time because you're already overloaded with a lot of information and you feel that's the entire world, right? You have all of this information in your head. You try to apply it, but in a work environment, there could be or there could not be much application of all of that knowledge.
Yeah.
So one thing which really worked out for me is continuously gaining hard skills. I think that's something which I would like to emphasize, especially for a lot of youngsters who are preparing or who are now ex-UPSC aspirants and are looking to get into social impact space or in general any space, right? As I was mentioning that, as a recruiter, I would look at what skills do you bring to the table. That's the most important thing. And when I say skills, not the soft skills but hard skills. For example, if you're good at coding, that's something that you can highlight, you can showcase, and maybe learn a lot more because there are new and new innovations happening. There is artificial intelligence growing, there's machine learning, there's so many different things coming up. Similarly, if someone is interested in, let's say, creative side of things. For example, they're into designing, they're into video creation. Even that space is growing a lot. In general, the communication space. Someone is interested in research, so the gaining hard research skills such as data analysis, conducting primary research on the ground. Those are something that would be a great value add. And a lot of organizations are looking for these kind of skills. And the point is not about, okay, taking a year off, gaining all of these skills, and then applying for the job. It is more about you get a job, try and see while working, how can you gain those skills and apply at your workspace. And then, it will give you a good real-time sense of how those skills can be applied, and then grow within the team or then take up a job at another organization where they sort of expect this kind of experience or a particular skill set and move on in the from a growth perspective as well. A specific example I would like to share from my own experience is, so while I was at JPAL, it was the first time I have heard about monitoring and evaluation. Right, prior to that, I only had an engineering graduate degree, as I mentioned, and a lot of understanding about public policy and how governments work. But when I joined JPAL, I took the opportunity to complete the certification called Data Economics and Development Policy. It was offered by MITx. It's an online course where they encourage you to take up five different courses. It's a program, it's a certificate program. And after completing those five cert courses, you can apply to go to MIT to make it a full-time degree, right? So from the people who have completed the online modules, a bunch of them get selected, and then they get to go to MIT, spend 6 months, do a capstone project, and then they will be awarded a degree in data economics and development policy. So although I didn't apply, I mean, I didn't go to MIT, but even the completing of the five courses helped me gain a lot of understanding of how we can conduct primary research, data analysis, how social scientists can actually gain with respect to designing your own research, research studies, and in general understanding how randomized control trials can be designed. So that gave me a chance to actually work on a randomized evaluation while I was at JPAL. And all of that experience over the 3 years helped me pivot into consulting, right? Where I could start managing their impact evaluation team at Sattva. And while at Sattva, again, a lot of other skills I have learned with respect to how to manage a team, how to manage a client, how to think about creating a program from scratch to end. How do you monitor your program and understand whether you're moving in the right direction, etc., or not? So all of this experience and understanding and knowledge then helped me move into my next role where I'm currently in.
Right.
And over the past 2.5 years, I've learned a lot about web design, content creation, digital marketing. Yeah, it's been a huge learning. Um, it's an exponential curve, I would say. So, yeah, I mean, I think the whole point is keep learning, keep gaining skills wherever you're working. You don't have to look at it in a very linear way that I gain skills and then I get into a job, I work, and then again I have to gain skills and then I have to get into another job. It could be pretty organic. You can gain skills while you're working. Try to make the best use of your time, and I'm sure you would grow pretty well. At least that's the kind of experience I have.
And this is actually something that the
Yeah, yeah.
aspirants can try and do even while they're preparing, right? Just taking out some time and gaining a skill along with the preparation can help eventually when they decide to transition, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Point about learning even while preparing for civil services. I'm sure, yeah, one can if they just have to spend maybe 2 to 3 hours in a day, uh, or a couple of hours in a week. Totally depends on which stage they are in the preparation journey or how much time they have that they can give to gain a skill. But I strongly urge students to do that because it helps you, overcome the gap. When let's say unfortunately you don't make into the civil services, if at all that happens, but I expect all of you to crack it. But in case if it doesn't happen, when you're trying to apply for a job, um, to overcome the gap question, I think a skill always makes you a very good attractive candidate for them to hire. So try and do it if possible. And I think it's all about time management and prioritizing these different things. But having a good skill will ensure the door opens up for your plan B. Yeah.
Yes. And if you would want to just give the aspirants, those who are still preparing or those who are looking to transition to other sectors, based on your experience being an aspirant and then just working across different industries, what are the suggestions that you would want to give to our community members?
Yeah. So maybe I would sort of restrict, I mean, in the sense, not talk about other sectors or other
Yeah.
industries I have not worked in. Maybe it's very specific to the social impact space. I would say couple of things that people should be clear about is would you want to be invested for long is only when you would want to come into the social impact space. As I mentioned earlier, creating impact takes time,
Yeah.
and it's a journey where you have to continuously keep learning, keep innovating, thinking about how do I solve a particular problem, maybe in an innovative way, can only help you achieve impact. It cannot
Mhm.
happen over a year or 2 years. So yes, take up social impact roles if you believe that you want to be invested in it for long, and if you want to create impact. Secondly, Hunt emphasize more about learning and development. Keep picking up the skills. Keep thinking about what are the other new things that you can learn and apply it in your role. And hard skills are important for sure, given the competitive world we are in. And also, we have too many generalists now. I feel world is going back into too many. We would need a lot more specialized people. So I think their skills play a very important role. I'm sure most of the UPSC aspirants already have gained a lot of problem solving capabilities, but even then, try and do think about the real life problems and think about how you would like to solve them. And that helps you build, your problem solving capabilities that you could apply in your role or in general, right? And whatever you would want to achieve. Uh, yeah, and last couple of points I would say is with respect to pay. Although in the recent years, in the past decade, the pay structure has evolved, even in the nonprofit space, in the early careers, in the roles which are at, the freshers or even after that, the role is the pay is almost as same as what one would earn in a corporate world, right? In for-profit ventures. But one should make peace with not maybe being able to earn as much as someone who's working in the corporate space with, let's say, after 10 or 15 years, right? In the 20s, you wouldn't care about money much, but yeah, once you hit 30s, hit you, you have other responsibilities, etc. That's when you start realizing that, oh, maybe I wouldn't be able to make as much money as someone who's making in the corporate world. Yeah, so feeling bad about it doesn't make any sense. So be prepared for it and make peace with not being able to make that much money, because honestly that's not possible, right? It's at the end of the day, you're working for social good, and no one is going to pay you so much as what corporates would make, because they're the logic, right? Like they make profits and they pay you well. Last couple of things I would say is be willing to try out new things, come out of your comfort zone, especially most importantly, coming out of that government mindset, right? Governments have a way of working. I'm sure all of us preparing for the examinations have put ourselves into that ecosystem and that environment when we continuously think about, oh, policies and this is how it should be. But real life out there is very, very different. And I believe once you start working in the social impact space, reality hits you and you yourself will learn that, oh, the way we look at solving problems is very different. Yeah, so you have to keep learning, you have to keep trying out new things, and I'm sure it'll work out. And lastly, I would highly encourage everyone to travel, right? Being in the four walls and reading through the internet or reading books can only help you so much, right? It will not give you the complete picture. So when you interact with real people, when you go into the communities, when you interact with the poor, especially the underprivileged communities, listening to their life stories, understanding the kind of challenges they might be facing, creates new perspectives for you, right? So that defines and that helps you define and that helps you maybe narrow down which path and what sectors and what areas you would want to focus on. Maybe also encourage you to start something of your own, right? So yeah, I think these are a few points I would like to share with the aspirants or excellent aspirants.
Thank you so much for sharing those points so candidly. I think Just in general, thank you for taking out the time and being so honest and open about your journey. I'm sure your learning, all these valuable learnings that you shared, will be very useful for all our community members. And we really hope that everyone who feels stuck at the moment and everybody who's trying to find a better opportunity um, get some help out of it, right? Is able to get some value out of this. So thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure completely, Gayatri, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I'm sure, like, a lot of people have different experiences, but I would again try to bring back the point that believe in yourself. I'm sure everyone can be successful. It's not a time for you to worry about, okay, should I get back into what others are doing or what I was doing earlier? Uh, be gutsy, try to choose a different path, and I'm sure things will fall into place and every one of us can figure it out.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's the takeaway. Things will fall into place and we will eventually figure it out. Thank you.